What's going on, everyone? Good Mike Work Commentaries back at you with an exclusive mic drop. That's right, these aren't always clips of past shows. Every now and then, you get a fresh one, and today is a pretty appropriate day for that as we have some pretty sad and disappointing news coming out of WWE as WWE has released Jeff Hardy following some disturbing events that took place this past weekend at some WWE live events in Texas. A lot of speculation going around regarding Jeff Hardy and what his future is and what exactly happened. All we really knew was that Jeff was home and that he was safe. And that's all we really got out of his brother, Matt Hardy, who let us know that on social media. And we've had some more news funneling into us over the past couple of days, including some fan video footage of the house show in question where Jeff kind of just ditched out on his team and wandered off into the crowd. And a lot of speculation that Jeff was not in a good place and possibly maybe even worked the match impaired. Now, we know nothing of this. Sean Ross Sapp, shout out to him, who broke the story of Jeff's release today. He did say that WWE offered Jeff Hardy rehab and help, which Jeff Hardy declined, which led to them letting him go. So I don't want to speculate as to what was going on with Jeff. We don't know, but if you hear a story like WWE offered him rehab, obviously there has been some sort of a relapse of some kind. We don't know if it's alcohol. We don't know if it's drugs. We don't know anything, and I feel like it's really not appropriate to speculate too much on that stuff since we don't know. All we know is that Jeff is very much beloved by not only the wrestling audience, but his peers. Lots of love shown to Jeff today from people in WWE, from people in AEW, and anyone else, fans or otherwise, who deal with substance abuse or maybe deal with family members or people close to them that battle addiction and things like that. Lots of love being shown to Jeff Hardy today, which is comforting and good to see. And, you know, like we said, all we want for Jeff Hardy is for him to be okay, happy, and healthy. And from what we understand, he is home and he is doing okay. But whatever took place this past weekend did lead to his release. So I believe the big show in question here, I think, was Sunday night in Corpus Christi, Texas. It was a six-man with Xavier Woods, Drew McIntyre, and Jeff Hardy taking on the Bloodline. And there is some footage that has surfaced of that event, I believe, on social media. It's either that one or the night before. And as Jeff is making his way to the ring, he's just very, very sluggish. I mean, he's not moving very fast. To be honest, it does resemble a little bit of the Victory Road stuff with TNA, although not to that degree. I think even Sean Ross Sapp pointed out that he was told that it wasn't as bad as what Victory Road was, because we all know what kind of crazy situation that was and how much remorse Jeff felt for that now 10 years later. And it seemed like he was in a really good place. But when you look at this video, he just seems lethargic, you know, which can happen at house shows. I used to go to a ton of house shows back in the day. The wrestlers kind of walk through those matches, go through the motions. They ain't out there trying to get hurt, but at the same time, they do go out there and work a little bit. So to see Jeff, you know, just so slow and, docile like that, it was alarming. And during the match, apparently, you know, the match had to be booked around him because they knew they weren't going to get much out of him. Apparently, they knew this even earlier on in the day, but by the time they got out there, Jeff wasn't very useful at all, and he even slid out of the ring and then just in the middle of the match went out into the crowd to take pictures and stuff. And I believe it was after that that he was sent home from the road to go back home where he's been recovering or convalescing or whatever. So whatever was going on there, it's sad. Our hearts go out to Jeff Hardy. We wish him the best. You never like to hear stuff like this. And anytime somebody is battling addiction, all you want for them is just to get better and just to live a happy and healthy life. Matt Hardy and Jeff have both struggled with demons and addictions. This has been widely documented and chronicled throughout the years. Matt Hardy was in a really, really dark place himself, as was Jeff. Matt really came out of his dark place to now have this beautiful family with Rebby. 4 kids, I believe they now have. And Jeff Hardy, largely in part, deserves that same credit as he has really turned his life around as well. But he has been the one that does seem to have setbacks every now and then. It was a couple of years ago. He got in the DUI. I think he crashed into a fence or something like that in North Carolina and, was able to avoid any serious charges or jail time or whatever there in WWE. Since alcohol is not, part of the wellness policy, they released their typical WWE-like statement that Jeff Hardy is an adult and he's responsible for his own actions. We've seen the same thing with the Usos recently with their struggles with alcohol, and Jeff Hardy was even recently a guest on Broken Skull Sessions. I talked about that a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, that I thought it was a really good episode, and it was cool to see Jeff Hardy, really own up to his past mistakes and stuff. Although, he was saying a few things in there that was a bit cryptic in terms of how he is not over this addiction. Anybody battling addiction never really is over it. But he's to the point now where he's back on the road and he still has those temptations. And he said it's easy for him. This is his words on Broken Skull Sessions, so I'm not speculating here. But Jeff said that it's easy for him to stay away from drugs because that's not everywhere, but alcohol is. Alcohol is everywhere. When you're traveling, you're at airports, you're in hotels, restaurants, whatever, you've got alcohol surrounding you, and it's easy to maybe have that temptation to have a drink. And apparently Jeff does still drink from time to time, maybe socially or whatever it is, but he has not given up all vices completely, mostly just the drugs. And I think back in the day, those were really his issues. Those were the well-documented issues that Jeff had. Along with Matt, they never really had too much of a problem with booze. It was the pills. It was the drugs. And Jeff Hardy has had repeated offenses with this, and he's dodged a few bullets with WWE. Of course, when he left in 2009, literally like 2 weeks later, he had his house raided. And had he been under contract at that point, that would have been a serious wellness policy issue for them, and he could have suffered some serious consequences, but they couldn't punish him for that. So even though he's had a couple of strikes in his life, even dating back to 2003, when I think a similar ultimatum was posed to Jeff, go get some help or you're let go, and he turned down the rehab request and opted to be let go instead. And of course, that was his first run in TNA until he came back to the company, left in 2009, had his house raided. His house even burned down shortly after that. He was in a dark place, and then he turned up in TNA in 2010 without these demons dealt with yet. And of course, that's when Victory Road happened about a year later. And Jeff Hardy has been on the mend ever since. Seems like he's been in a really good place, at least from a drug perspective, minus a couple of setbacks with the alcohol. So, like I said, we don't like to respond, or we don't like to speculate, but I would kind of hope that this latest incident with Jeff, I know this sounds crazy, I'm hoping it's more alcohol than it is drugs type of thing. And that Jeff just gets the help that he needs, because Jeff's my age. He's now in his mid-40s. He's got a couple of kids as well. He's got a family. His wife, Beth, actually did respond today, posted a statement, or kind of a statement on Twitter, where she said, I quote, "Jeff is good. We are good. Post that you heard that. Peace," is what her tweet said. I suppose that's in response to Sean Ross Sapp's tweet that he heard Jeff Hardy was offered rehab, but Sean states that the report is accurate, and that's what he was told by WWE, is that they offered Jeff Hardy rehab and he declined it. So Jeff is home. Beth says he is good. That's comforting to know. The family is good. Everybody is good, at least for right now. And we just hope that Jeff gets the help that he needs, and he gets to a place in his life, to where, setbacks are going to be a thing of the past. But, those of you, like I said, who battle addiction and maybe know someone who does, it's really hard to completely ever shake this. It's a constant battle for the rest of your life. And that's what Jeff is going to be dealing with here. So hopefully him being out from underneath the watchful eye of WWE is not going to make things worse for him. It is pretty alarming. And like I said, just speculation. But if Jeff Hardy did go to the ring impaired, and that happened on WWE's watch, that's pretty incredible. The fact that you're backstage and, it seems like somebody would step up and say, I don't think Jeff is in a good place. I don't think Jeff can go out there and wrestle. Nobody was able to recognize that, which makes me think maybe it's something else. It could be something mental. Maybe Jeff's in a bad mental place, or maybe he's just down. I don't know. He's also old. I know what it's like. I used to be able to do anything when I was in my 20s. Now it sometimes hurts just to bend over. And Jeff Hardy's got, 30 years of pain and punishment on his body. I would imagine he's going to have some tough days sometimes getting out of bed, in terms of his joints and his back and his neck and just his overall body. Being able to go out there and physically do stuff is going to be a challenge the older he gets, and I mean, hell, maybe he ate a bad edible or something, that can happen. It happened to me a couple of weeks ago. Ate one that was a little bit too strong, and it did kind of make me a little freaked out here for a couple of hours. So things like that do happen. But with Jeff, who has battled so many problems throughout his life, a lot of fans are extremely worried about him, obviously, because of this. And when it's enough to actually get you fired and have WWE release you, somebody who's really been around that company for the past 30 years. Yeah, he's come in and out, but Jeff was under contract from 98 all the way to 03, and then he left for a short time, came back, left in 09, left again, came back in 2017, and one of the greatest moments ever, one of the biggest pops ever in WrestleMania history or in WWE history, when the New Day brought out the Hardy Boys to take part in that ladder match in Orlando, and the building went nuts. Such a pop, such a triumphant return. And for me, somebody who's watched the Hardy Boys grow up, I used to live in North Carolina, just one town away. They used to hop into the town that I used to work in and do indie shows all the time when they were kind of in and out of WWE before they had actually gotten their actual contracts or the real contracts by WWE. I was in the building in Fayetteville when the Hardy Boys won their first ever WWE tag team titles. I think they beat the APA or the Acolytes back in July or something of 1999 or whenever it was. So, the Hardy Boys for me are just, have always been a mainstay in wrestling. And I've always had the sense of pride that they were kind of two little country boys that came from the same area that I grew up in, and they made it as high as they did and became huge stars. Jeff is a Hall of Famer, he's a multi-time world champion. And the Hardy Boys, both of them, are going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. Jeff has been around the business and around WWE for a long time, and I really hope this isn't the absolute end for him, Like, I'm sure he's going to turn back up. Hopefully he will get himself in a good place. I'm sure he's going to have a no-compete. People are definitely going to want to bring him in or sign him or whatever. But before any of that happens, I just want to make sure Jeff Hardy feels like he's able to move on with his career. And however he wants to tie it up and however he wants to end things, I hope he can just do it on his own terms, because this is not good. We very well probably have seen our last Jeff Hardy WWE match. I mean, I can't imagine a scenario where they're going to bring him back unless a good amount of time passes and he's shown them and displayed to them that he's, entered rehab or he's got himself cleaned up, and he means it this time, but he's meant it a lot of times. So it's a sad end if this is the end of Jeff Hardy forever in WWE, outside of perhaps a Hall of Fame induction in a few years when he's maybe officially retired or whatnot. Outside of that, I think that was it. I think it was November 26th, SmackDown was the last time Jeff Hardy was on TV for WWE, and that's probably going to be it. And that's sad, nearly 5 years ago when they returned, we were so happy to see them back, and I remember having this just sense of joy come over me that to see the Hardy Boys, everything that they went through, all of their struggles and their demons and their relationships and their battles with addiction, and to come out on the other side of it the way they did and have that fun little run in TNA with the broken Matt and the Brother Nero stuff, and then coming back to WWE to what looked to be a career-finishing contract for both of them. Now, of course, Matt Hardy, after WWE could never figure out what to do with the broken Matt character, and they just completely fucked that thing all to hell. Matt has chosen and elected to go to AEW, where he is now. Jeff stuck around in WWE, and I thought, even as old as Jeff is now, I still thought he's got enough fan support. Fans always love, always respect Jeff Hardy, no matter what kind of trouble he's in. I thought he might even have one more, maybe quick, run with the WWE title before he officially hung up his boots. But that seems to be an extremely unlikely possibility now, and that's a shame. So just wanted to come up here and give you guys a small little video to let you guys know that I did hear about what happened with Jeff Hardy over the weekend, and yes, I did hear about his release today, and I am super bummed out about it. But all that's important now is the health and the well-being of Jeff Hardy. No interest or speculation at all, at least on my end, and if he's going to go to AEW or anything like that. I saw a lot of tweets about that. Oh, good, he can jump to AEW. This is so much bigger than wrestling and so much more important than wrestling, and we've seen something similar just in recent weeks with Jon Moxley requesting help to go to rehab and get himself cleaned up. We want the same for Jeff Hardy. We want him to be ready and healthy and able to continue his career if he chooses. And as a wrestling fan, I don't really need to see him in AEW. All I need as a wrestling fan is for Jeff to be okay, because Jeff has given us nearly 30 years of service, of entertainment, of matches, of memories, of moments. For us to worry about him jumping to AEW and being all elite now, I think is a little bit short-sighted, and there's much bigger issues at hand, and that is the health and well-being of Jeff Hardy. So just wanted to wish Jeff the best. Good luck with everything. We are all pulling for you, everybody. Hopefully you realize that. Hopefully if you are looking at social media, you see the outpouring of love and support from all of us, from all of your peers, across all companies, across all states, across all countries, across the globe. Jeff, we love you. Get well soon and hope to see you in the ring again someday. Peace.